This is a Sicha printed in Chilech of Gimel, Sicha Beis. It's page 73. Okay. In Pesach, Vayi ben Seah ha'orim v'yimar Moshe, Kuma Hashem v'yafutzu evecha v'yinisu v'zarecha b'panecha. So in regards when the Acharon would go on its journey with the Yid in the Midbar, so the Pesach says, Moshe said, Arise Hashem, and let your enemies evecha be scattered, and let those who hate you, misanecha, flee from before you. Now, Rashi says, what does it mean, and let your enemies scatter? This is the hamechunosim, the people that are gathered. And what does it mean? Let those who hate you flee. Elu hareifim. These are the people who are reidif the Yidden, who pursue the Yidden. So that's what Moshe was saying. That when the Acharon come out, he would say, Hashem, get up, and let the enemies who are stationed, mobilized, let them be scattered, and as well, and your enemies flee from you. Those are the ones that are ready to eat. B'pashas Lartamin. Now, B'pashas, how do we learn this? As Rashi b'avarn them keifa aloshin of Pesach. Rashi's bothered. Why is there a double expression in the Pesach? V'yafutzu eivecha. He's saying that your enemies should scatter. V'yanusu misanecha, and your enemies should flee. Here Rashi's telling you we're talking about two separate types of people. Yufutzu that's wegen the oyevim hamechunosim. Was the farva zayin the hepech von mechunosim v'yufutzu ivecha. So therefore Rashi's telling us that there's two types of groups over here. This, that v'yufutzu ivecha, let your enemies be scattered, that refers to the enemies that are mobilized. So what's going to happen? They are mechunasim. They're gathered to and they're mobilized to fight the Yidden. So what happens? That Hashem is going to do the exact opposite, and He's going to scatter them. And as far as that, then you have the ones who pursue the Yidden. So what's going to happen to them is Moshe is saying, let those who hate you flee. So that's the double expression, that your enemies are going to scatter, that the exact opposite what they're mobilized. So Hashem is going to make is going to scatter them, and the ones who pursue the Yidden, what's Hashem going to do? He's going to make them flee, and that's what Rashi is bavoring, the double expression. What's the difference between we're talking about two distinct groups of enemies. The Rebbe says, however, there's something very sticks out in the way Rashi explains. When it comes to the first clause of let your enemies be scattered, Rashi says, the gathered ones. And when it comes to let those who hate you flee, Rashi adds the words, these are the reithim. So the question is why? Why is it when it comes to explaining Yafutza Evecha, Rashi says Ham Mechunasim, and then when it comes to V'yinus V'Sanachar, instead of saying Haraithim, Rashi says Elu Haraithim. Why is he adding the word Elu? And the diak in them is noch starker. This nuance is even starker. Why? The Wakaf from them Pirish Rashi is in Sifri, and Darj is the Lashon Ela Mechunasim and La Haraithim. Rashi's source is in the Sifri, and the Sifri Taki uses both expressions of Elu. Rashi is Meshana for Lashon HaSifri, by Evecha lost their Oistam Vort Elu. And by Mesanach, as a Yomatik the Vort of Elu. Now, when it comes Rashi's source is the Sifri writes Elu in both parts. However, Rashi, when it comes to the first part of Mechunosim, Rashi doesn't say Elu. And when it comes to Misanecha, Rashi chooses to use the words Elu. Alright, so these are the ones who pursue you. So that's basically that's two questions we have on this Rashi. Number one is, why does he use the word Elu? And not only that, but to make the question stronger, if the Sifri whose source is Rashi says Elu, why does Rashi only use Elu by the Reisfim, by the V'yanusim Misanecha, but not by the Futzei Vecha? Base. Weiter is Rashi noch einmal matik dem Wort Misanecha is mefarish. In the next writer, Rashi continues and says, from the word Misanecha, so Rashi says, Elu Seini Yisrael, Shekol HaSeinis Yisrael, Seinis Mi, She'awar V'haya Elam. Shenemar U'Misanecha Nasu Reish, U'Miheim Al Amcha Yarim Musaid. If you look later, Rashi says, on the word, who are the enemies? Who's Misanecha? So Rashi says, these are the haters of the Yidden. And whoever hates the Yidden hates the one who spoke and brought the world into being. In other words, Hashem. As it says, those who hate you, Misanecha, those who hate you, Nasu Reish, have raised their head. Umihim, who are they? So Rashi says, Al Amcha Yarim Musaid, against your nations they conspire secretly. So that's what Rashi quotes in regards to Misanecha. Misanecha, Rashi says, who is Misanecha? These are the people that hate the Yidden. Whoever hates the Yidden hates Hashem. As it says, those who hate you, Misanecha, those who hate you, Nasu Reish, raise their heads. And who are those? Those are the ones, these are the Amcha, these are the nations, Yarim Musaid, who conspire secretly. In Pashtus is the Rashi Eisen zu bewarten, der Pasuk that da wegen die was kommen Mohammed halten mit Yidden. Hein, for was ruf sie on, der Pasuk Misanecha von Eberstein. Now, Rashi is bothered by, the Pasuk here seems to speak about people who wage war with the Yidden. So why does the Torah refer to, or why is Moshe saying, those who hate you, those who hate Hashem? They don't hate Hashem, they hate the Yidden. Therefore Rashi says that whoever hates the Yidden really hates Hashem who spoke and brought the world into being. It says, however, there's still something which is wondrous. Now, this question you could ask the same question on the first part of the pasuk of V'yafutzu Eivecha, that you were saying, let your enemies be scattered. Why does Rashi only offer this interpretation later concerning Misanecha, those who hate you? Now, the Rebbe says, es ist voran beforschen, was entfernen, as we bald in the pasuk, was Rashi bringt als ein Reihe, wird gesagt Misanecha, der Rebbe bringt es auf Rashi, auf Enes Misanecha, und nicht auf Eivecha Shaloi Niskar Sham Eivim. Some Mefarshim want to explain, as if Sechachamim, he brings down that since the pasuk that Rashi quotes as a proof to his interpretation deals with Misanecha, so he brings the interpretation when he explains the words Misanecha, and not in Oyevecha when there's no pasuk mentioned. Now, the Rebbe says, the Chiddush Tzarchi in God. This is a very, very problematic answer. Warum in demselben pasuk, far die Werte Misanecha Nasureish, steht Kihine Oyevecha Yemayim. Steht doch befehlisch, as die was al Amchi Anim Musaid, read on from Misanecha on Eish Oyevecha. Now, if you look, before the pasuk of those who hate you, Misanecha, raise their heads, in the same pasuk, what does it say? It says, behold, Oyevecha, your enemies are in uproar. So we see clearly that those who conspire against your nations are also called Oyevecha. So how can you see there's no pasuk that says that doesn't speak about a pasuk about Oyevecha? Nachar, the Rebbe says even more so. Furthermore, and the Sudam Inyan was Rashi Zaktas and so Vernagur from Misanecha for them Eberstern. Hashem Rashi Mefash by freer from pasuk Taris Kamecha and Shir Sayam the Pashas Peshalach. Umihim Akam connected Elakam Yisrael. Or that bring that Takedi Raya Vechenu Emer, niet from Lashem Sanecha Nasar nor from Kihine Oyevecha Yamayan. O Mahi Amaya Al Amchi Alimu said. Now, if you look in Rashi, Rashi explains that is similar to Rashi's explanation here that those who hate Yidden are called Misanecha. Rashi already said by Shir Sayam and Parashat Peshalach, it says in regard to the pasuk of Taharis Kamecha, you devastate your opponents. Kamecha. Rashi says who opposes him? Those who oppose the Yidden. And Rashi quotes the pasuk, and similarly, his proof is not from the words of Misanecha, Nasureish, but rather from the pasuk of that Hine Eivecha Yemayim, for behold your enemies are in uproar. What is the uproar? Against your nations. They conspire secretly. And because of this, the pasuk calls these conspirers, the Torah says, Eivecha, the enemies of Hashem. Yet in our pasuk, Rashi chooses not to say this word of those who hate Hashem, the Yidden hate Hashem, on the first part, but rather he says it only on the word Misanech. So when we said in Beis, we said that we quoted right in Rashi, in this pasuk, Rashi says on Misanech, the enemies, Rashi says, why are you calling it Hashem's enemies? Because those who hate Hashem, hate Yidden, hate Hashem. And Rashi brings up a raya, Misanecha, those who hate you lift their head, and who is that? The nations that conspire against the secretly. Now, so the Rebbe says, but Pashas Rashi is saying, why are you calling Misanecha of Hashem if they're the enemies of the Yidden? Because anybody who hates the Yidden hate Hashem. Now, the Rebbe asks, this question you can ask on the first part of the pasuk of Yafutzu Eivecha. Why are you only bringing on V'Yinusum Misanecha? Now, some of us want to say is because he's bringing on V'Yinusum Misanecha because he has actually have a pasuk to say that he has a pasuk to say that he has a pasuk that so it was the pasuk, we said the pasuk of Misanecha Nasir Reish, which speaks about Misanecha. So therefore, that's why he brings the pasuk. The Rebbe says that you also have a pasuk in Fakir. Rashi brings in other places in Shir Sayam, the pasuk of speaking of Eivecha Yemayu, speaking about his nations. I think there's a clear pasuk that Eivecha is referring to the enemy. Okay, Gimel. And then a portion for effort is. Other commentaries explain as a Yevecha, your enemies, which means deine Feind. So other commentaries explain that your enemies, deine Feind wollten gekennzeichnen, as das meint nicht die, was haben Feind im Eberster, nur verkehrt, die, was der Eberster hat sie Feind. So some of us want to say like this, O Yevecha, your enemies, refers to people that Hashem hates. Misanecha nitzzoinecha can nicht anders geteilt werden, nor die, was haben dich Feind. So some of us will say like this, O Yevecha, your enemies means not to the haters of Hashem, but the opposite, to those who Hashem hates. Misanecha, not Sinecha, you cannot say that it refers to, if it refers to who Hashem hates, you would say Seinecha. So what is Misanecha? So Rashi says that what does it mean? It means the people that hate Yidden, and whoever hates Yidden hates Hashem. Now what's wrong with that answer? This explanation is also not so understood. Why? Because the Rebbe says in brackets, Sie bald Rashi hat schon früher mefarisch gewen Kanal. Als die was Alam Chiarim was said, angerufen Oyevecha, Oyev Shomagam, al die was seine Kommen al Yisrael sein, sie kommen Kenegdei, Punkt V by Mesanecha. Now, aside from the primary issue, Rashi has already explained that those who conspire secretly against your nations are called your enemies, the enemies of Hashem, because those who oppose the Yidden are those who oppose Hashem, just as it's true for those who hate you. Punkt wie bei Misanecha is das Shenitok in Ort zu sagen, da anders und deutlich sein, as Vecha da meinti was the Eberste Hazi find. Now, Rashi already said that from the pasuk of Alam Chiarim Musaid, they're called Oyevecha. Why? Because those who go against Hashem, go against Hashem. So Rashi already told us that Oyevecha is going on those who rise against Hashem. So it's not trying to say that Oyevecha means the ones that Hashem hates. So in addition to that, from Kolel Teichem Hemshech Aksuvim like Pirush Rashi's Mochoch, as mit Oyevecha Punkt die mit Misanecha meint der Pasuk die was haben Feind Yidden. According to the Rashi's explanation, Oyevecha and Misanecha refer to the same thing, those who hate the Yidden. Was der Eva Vesina drückt sich aus in their Mechama haben gegen Yidden, and their hatred is expressed in the way that they fight the Yidden. If they glorify them, like it says before this in the pasuk, "Or in Bris Hashem ne'seil lefneim." Rashi refers to Acharon and Yitzimim limachama. Rashi says, in regards to the Acharon of the Bris Hashem journey before them, Rashi says this is the Acharon that would accompany them to war. Umehevshach zokter pasuk vayim b'sar Acharon. Okay, maybe a foot say vecha mechunasim yanusim sanecha elo areitzim. As they're tied from the as the Vemen the Eberster hot find. So it makes no sense to say, if you look in the sequence, the psukim, and the way that the context that we're talking about, it makes no sense to say that we're going to split up and say Oyevecha is those who Hashem hates, and Misanecha is those who hate Hashem. It's the same thing. It's talking about two different sects of people that both hate the Yidden and express their hatred in waging war. The Rebbe says, so the Rebbe says this, Muslim Zogin, as das was Rashi is gone to the Farsh of Oyevecha is weil verlosich auf sein friedigen Pirush auf Taris Kamecho wird klar abgeteilt as die was Alam Chiarim Musaid können is Oyev Shemakom. So therefore Rashi relying on the fact that he said before, Parshas B'Shalach, what does it mean, Taris? What does it mean when he explained Taris Kamecho? That it's referring to those who rise against the Yidden, and those who conspire secretly against Hashem. Torah calls them Oyev of Hashem. Aber Oiba Zei is Koshel Idach Yisov. Havas wenn kommt zum Reden Misanecha verlässt Rashi seine Friedrich Pirush mehr Chazes Iber Nachal. Now, if this is true, why does Rashi not rely on the previous commentary regarding those who hate you, Misanecha? Why does it seem necessary to explain that it's referring to those who hate the Yidden? Dalit. There's also a few nuances, a few diukim in Rashi's expression. But if Taharas Kamecho, especially from his commentary mention in regards to Taharas Kamecho, you devastate your opponent, or mayhem. What's the diukim? So that ever brings four diukim. Aleph. Was is that Gosh for Rashi does the glass senis is so sin as me shamar v'ayel with begins to senis is so the senis amokim. Why is Rashi emphasizing by saying that whoever hates the Yidden hates the one who spoke, brought the world into being? Why not use a more concise lashon and say either hates Hashem or hates, either say senis HaKadosh Baruch Hu senis amokim. Base. Be Pirushe is Taris Kamecha is Rashi Marcha Mihim Akom Kenegdei. Or does Dr. Gleif Masanecha Ilus in Yisrael. His explanation in Pashas Beshalach, you devastate your opponent, Rashi prolongs his explanation by asking who opposes him. And here Rashi says, those who hate you. Rashi says, Elus and Yisrael. These are people who hate Yidden. Gimel. When Rashi bring dort die Reihe von Pasuk Yinei Veche Yemayin, nutzt dem Lashon Mechino Emer. Und da sagt Shenemer. Rashi brings the proof of his explanation in the other pasuk. Rashi says, Yinei Veche Yemayin. He uses the expression, and similar it says. In our pasuk, he uses the expression Shenemer. And Dalid, by Baptized die Reihe, is there sagt Rashi Misanecha Nasser Shumi Heim Alam Chenim Museit. As the Shel is there is an Misanechem. Takek and there sagt Rashi Kinei Vechimin Umaya Maya Alam Chenim Museit. The Shel is was versteht die Asiya Maya Funei Vechem. So first of all, in our pasuk, when Rashi explains the proof of the pasuk, Rashi says those who hate you have already raised their heads. Who are they? Against your nation, they conspire secretly. The question is, who are those who hate you? However, in the other passage, Rashi says, number one, for behold, your enemies are in uproar. And what is the uproar? Against your nations, they conspire secretly. In other words, the question is, what constitutes this act of uproar of your enemies? And Beis, and Derach, is Rashi Messiah, Azet, to leave their Hamoya from Alamcha, Bugamer, Kir, Isim, Eva, Shamakim. And then Rashi concludes, and because of this, because the uproar is that against your nation, the pasuk refers to them as the enemies of Hashem. Okay, so the Rebbe says like this: Der Bier bechol zevet verstandig behektem was in lashon ashi bepashashen is da ashina ikri legav dem lashon sifri mekeir pirishash. We'll clarify this by first prefacing. There's a key difference between Rashi's wording in our parsha and the wording in Sifri, which is the source of Rashi's explanation. In Sifri state, Shekol mi shesenes Yisrael, ki ilu sene as mi shomer v'haya elam. In Sifri it says that anybody who hates the Yidden, it's like ki ilu, he hates Hashem. Or over here, Rashi, on Rashi Zakt, Shekol sene Yisrael, senes mi shomer v'haya elam, on them kilo. Rashi over here says that whoever hates the Yidden hates Hashem, who spoke and brought the world into being. And he takes out the word ki'ilu, as if. What does that mean? Das says, Rashi learned as das, was der Pasuk sagt, Misanecha, nicht bleibt endlich in der Harbkeit von dem Chet vereinisch, als Feind haben Yidden, ist endlich zu Feind haben dem Ebersten. Nur Misanecha, meint, gibt Schuldig. Sagt man Feind dem Ebersten. Weil es ist Heinu Hach. Oder, der, was Senes Yisrael, is der Far, was is Senes Misham V'Yayilim. In other words, according to Rashi, when the pasuk says, those who hate you, it isn't just telling you the severity of the sin and punishment of these haters. It's equivalent to the hate that the hating a Yid is comparable to hating Hashem. Instead, those who hate you is literal. They hate Hashem. In other words, hatred for the Jewish people and hatred for Hashem is one and the same. So a person who's a hater of the Yidden hates them only because he is someone who hates Hashem, who brought the world into being. Similarly, when the pasuk says "Haris kamecha," you devastate your opponent, Rashi uses the words and says, "And those who oppose him, those who oppose him, oppose the Yidden," which is different than the Mechilta, because the Mechilta says, "For anyone who rises against Hashem, it's as if they oppose him." Rashi is das Heinu Hach. Elam Vesen as Yidden and Li Skula Mikolama Bni Bechedi Yisrael. And the neighbor is was by Zay Ein Zach. The mitzvah say Zayin come connected Zer, but there made a Kama Yisrael V'Chazayin Da the Eibishter Sam Skula. Now, because The nations of the world realize that the Jewish people are basically a treasure to me and amongst all the nations. And they're the firstborn, even are the firstborn of Israel. So therefore, in their eyes, it's one thing. By opposing him, they automatically oppose the Yidden, which are the Hashem's treasure nation. Aber in them, Eifena und Teikif von Feindschaft, Ufa is da Achilles zwischen Eivecha, Kamecha, Mesanecha. However, there's a difference in the intensity of the hatred between your enemies, your opponents, and those who hate you. My time can Zichrashi by Bayrus Mesanecha nit verlassen if them pirish by Taras Kamecha. Therefore, Rashi cannot let the reader rely on the pshat of Bayrus Mesanecha by Taras Kamecha. But there was me gefehnt, as was seine Kamecha und Eivecha der Farbas, sie seine Kam al Yisrael, weil Amchayarim said, is noch nicht kein Reihe, als me kann sagen, dass selber beim Sanecha, als der Sinne zu Jiden, ist aber weiß auf der Sinne zum Eberstein. Warum sei der dritte Reis, als auch starker, tiefere Feindschaft, wie Oyev und Kamecha, was passt mit Lechera, klapp in meine Kedel Kaman. Now, the Rebbe says, that there's a difference in regards to Oyev V'Acha and Mesanecha. A hater is a saying connotes a much stronger and deeper, deeper than just a Oyev, an opponent, which is like an emotion that seems inappropriate when talking about Hashem. So, therefore, accordingly to explain, and let those who hate you flee, Rashi cannot rely on the early explanation regarding Taras Kamecha, knowing that the nations of the world are your opponent, your enemies, because they oppose the Yidden, and they conspire secretly against Hashem, does not mean that the same applies to those who hate you. That their hatred for the Jewish people is necessarily evident for their hatred of Hashem. So we're going to explain exactly that the Chiddush is that really they hate Hashem, and that translates into hating the Yidden, which we'll finish tomorrow. Okay, have a good day.